So welcome to another session of Islamabad Policy Exchange, which is our series where we bring representatives from academia, private sector, government, civil society together to discuss ongoing public policy challenges, especially in the domain of fiscal policy, trade policy, and business regulations. So Prime Institute, for those who are attending our event for the first time, Prime Institute is an independent think tank which I established back in 2013 to promote the ideas of free market competition, level playing field, open trade, limited government, and a lower rate of taxes. These are not exactly the ideas which are popular, especially जब हम कहेंगे जी taxes को कम करना चाहिए, government का size कम करना चाहिए, या तजारत को competition की तरफ हमें लेके जाना चाहिए, क्योंकि बहुत सी tendencies इसके exactly opposite हैं. लेकिन we believe that think tanks, there is a role of think tanks to keep making the right noise through research, through evidence, through messaging, through communication, and that's our job, that's our responsibility. And we are happy to see a very engaged discussion, very engaged participants, and looking forward to this discussion today, which is on a very specific topic on general sales tax. इसके ऊपर मेरी colleague Maryam अभी बात करेंगी. लेकिन मैं आप सबको खुशामदीद कहता हूँ, especially जो हमारे पैनलिस्ट हैं, सरदार ताहिर महमूद, प्रेसिडेंट इस्लामाबाद चैम्बर, Mr. Usman Shaukat, President Rawalpindi Chamber, Sheikh Waqar Ahmed, who is Head of Corporate Affairs and Sustainability at Nestle, and Dr. Nasir Iqbal, Senior Economist at Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. We are told that the Chairman of National Assembly Standing Committee on Finance and Revenue, Sayyid Naveed Qamar, may join, but let's see if he is able to make it at the end. But we also have representation from the government. We will also be, of course, making a report and submitting it directly to the Tax Policy Office. अभी इस मीटिंग से पहले ही उनका मुझे मैसेज आया था कि they wanted to participate, but they are busy in the budget making exercise, so they could not come out from their office, but they're very keenly looking forward कि recommendations जो निकलें यहाँ से वो budget making उसके अंदर budget proposals में वो जा सकें. So that's the objective, not just analysis, but hopefully then bringing out with some solutions, some recommendations. The bigger frame of this discussion is around general sales tax in particular. आज की जो discussion है, और जैसे आपके इल्म में है, हमारे पास यहाँ पर business community के बहुत से लोग बैठे हुए हैं. बहुत सालों से, पिछले मेरे ख्याल है कोई at least 30 years or 35 years से हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि GST के ज़रिए डॉक्यूमेंट किया जाए इकॉनमी को, फॉर्मलाइज करें, और सबको टैक्स उसके अंदर GST के अंदर लेके आएँ, वैल्यू एडिशन के वैट के तर्ज के ऊपर. लेकिन सारी कोशिश के बावजूद इसमें अभी तक तो हुकूमत को FBR को नाकामी हुई है, और उसकी वजह से उस टैक्स रेवेन्यू को कि जो शॉर्टफॉल है, जिसका आपके इल्म में है कि इस दफ़ा भी तकरीबन 700-800 अरब रुपए का टैक्स शॉर्टफॉल का सामना है हुकूमत को. तो वो उसको पूरा करने के लिए फिर जो कंप्लाइंट और फॉर्मल सेक्टर है, चाहे वो सैलरी टैक्स पेयर्स हैं या वो बिजनेस फर्म्स हैं, स्मॉल फर्म्स एंड लार्ज फर्म्स एंड मल्टी नेशनल्स हैं, ऑब्वियसली फिर उनको ज़्यादा टैक्स किया जाता है, जिसकी वजह से हमारे नज़र में दिस बिकम्स एन एंटी इन्वेस्टमेंट पॉलिसी. और जहाँ पर हुकूमत ने एक और पॉलिसी भी स्पेशली एक रखी हुई है बहुत सालों से कि जी हमने एक तरह से डिफ्रेंशिएट करना है जो टैक्स को, जो रजिस्टर्ड एंड अनरजिस्टर्ड हैं उसके अंदर उन्होंने डिफ्रेंशिएट किया रेट्स. जो नॉन कंप्लाइंट हैं, जो टैक्स नॉन पेयर्स हैं, उनको हमने हायर रेट्स के ऊपर लेके आना है. वो हमारी नज़र में, और बहुत से लोग उस पर बात कर चुके हैं, कि ये पॉलिसी फेल हुई है. इसने इंसेंटिवाइज करने के बजाय ये इंसेंटिव पैदा किया है कि आप टैक्स नेट से तो बाहर रहें और आप हायर टैक्स दे दें, या आप डॉक्यूमेंटेड इकॉनमी का हिस्सा ना बने. سو اگر آپ انکم ٹیکس میں دیکھیں, جی ایس ٹی میں دیکھیں, تو ہر جگہ آپ کو ایک ہی یہ سوچ اور اس کی ایک وہ نظر آتی ہے, ایک اینڈ ایک ناکامی بھی نظر آتی ہے. سو لیکن جیسے میں نے کہا کہ ہماری کوشش یہ ہوگی کہ اس کے آپ کے سامنے ایک آبجیکٹیو انالیسس رکھیں اور ایک پاسبل سولوشنز بھی آپ کے سامنے رکھیں, اور اس کے اوپر پھر میں جو ہمارے معزز پینلسٹ ہیں اس پہ ان سے میں ریکویسٹ کروں گا کہ وہ اپنے خیالات کا اظہار کریں. سو ویل اسٹارٹ ود شارٹ پریزنٹیشن. مریم ایوب ریسرچ اکانومسٹ ہیں, اینڈ اے فیو منٹس شی ول گو تھرو دی ہول آرگومنٹ.
Let me start with one number. Sales tax alone contributed 65.5% of the total indirect tax collection in fiscal year 25. It is not just one tax, یہ indirect taxation system کی backbone ہے. In principle, GST is a self-enforcing mechanism. Every stage of the supply chain creates an audit trail. بٹ پاکستان میں یہ سسٹم ریٹیل ٹائر پہ آ کے فیل کر جاتا ہے بیکاز آف لارج انڈاکیومنٹڈ بزنس. انڈاکیومنٹڈ ڈسکاؤنٹس, ٹرانسفر پرائسنگ اور آف انوائسنگ پیمنٹس کریٹ کرتی ہیں ایک گیپ, وائڈن کر دیتی ہیں ٹیکس ٹارگیٹڈ ٹیکس کلیکشن اور ایکچوئل ٹیکس کلیکشن کے بیچ کے گیپ کو. آلدو سیلس ٹیکس ایک آلٹرنیٹیو فریم ورک پہلے سے ہی پرووائڈ کرتا ہے وچ از دا تھرڈ اسکیجول. تھرڈ اسکیجول میں ٹیکس کلیکشن مینوفیکچرنگ لیول پہ ہوتی ہے اور ریٹیل پرائس پرنٹڈ ہوتی ہے آن دی پیکٹس. کرنٹلی ایف ایم سی جی کی پروڈکٹس 2.5 ٹریلین روپیز کی پروڈکٹس آلریڈی تھرڈ اسکیجول کا پارٹ ہیں. Why the current approach is failing? I think so 3 numbers can tell the story. First, 92% of the total 3.7 million retailers remain undocumented in Pakistan. Second, government ka primary tool of enforcement or the tool for the documentation of these businesses is additional taxation. Currently 4% further tax and 2.5% withholding tax imposed ہے on the goods sold to the unregistered retailers, جو کہ ٹوٹل additional burden ہوتا ہے 6.5% apart from the standard 18% GST. This further tax is not something new. یہ پاکستان میں 3 بار انٹروڈیوس ہوا, پھر ابالش ہونے کے بعد ری انٹروڈیوس ہوا, بٹ انڈر فائنانس ایکٹ 2023 اس کا ریٹ انکریز ہوا 3 to 4% اینڈ اٹ واز اسپیسیفکلی مینٹ ٹو امپروو دا ڈاکومنٹیشن پر. ڈفرنٹ گورنمنٹس نے بزنسز کو فارمل کرنے کے لیے بہت سے انفورسمنٹ میئرز بھی لیے. موسٹ ریسنٹ واز تاجر دوست اسکیم. It was much talked about by the government. Even wo scheme by the end of 2024, it only collected rupees 3 million against a target of 10 billion. اور اسی وجہ سے وہ scheme within 1 year discontinue ہو گئی because it was not able to meet the targets. Now here is the most revealing part. Even among the businesses that registered through this scheme, or even the businesses who are currently registered, there are large number of nil filers. So basically they are inside the system, but they are declaring zero taxable income. Now this tells us کہ problem صرف registration کی نہیں ہے, problem ہے truthful reporting کی. Businesses اپنی income report بھی نہیں کر رہے. So اس scenario میں any amount of additional taxation will not bring fruitful results. Also اس سسٹم کے انڈر additional collection points صرف اور صرف سپلائی چین میں revenue leakages کی opportunities کریٹ کر رہے ہیں, اور پاکستان میں millions of points موجود ہیں for the revenue leakage. Now this is where the policy failure becomes visible. اب جب انفارمل سیکٹر ریٹیلرز کمپلائی نہیں کرے تو ایڈیشنل کاسٹ ڈسپیئر تو ہو نہیں رہی. مینوفیکچرنگ سیکٹر از دا ون ہو از بیئرنگ دیٹ کاسٹ بیکاز مینوفیکچررز absorb that additional 4% tax instead of passing it to the retailers. The mechanism is simple क्योंकि वो एक ऑलरेडी बहुत ही competitive लो मार्जिन मार्केट में काम कर रहे हैं, तो ऐसी मार्केट में instead of losing their shelf space they prefer कि वो additional tax खुद ही absorb कर लें. So एक tool जो कि बना था to penalize the informal retailers, वो एक रिकरिंग कॉस्ट फॉर द कंप्लाइंट बिजनेसेस बन के रह गया है, क्योंकि मैन्युफैक्चरर्स मूव करते हैं अपनी प्रोडक्ट्स को थ्रू कॉस्ट एंड फाइट एजेंट्स, डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स, सब डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स, रिटेलर्स, और along every stage there is uncertainty. What is the transaction cost? What is the actual tax liability? Along this change, nobody knows with certainty. Undocumented discounts and off-price payments make the tax space opaque, both for the manufacturers and the FBR. Also, इस सिनेरियो में इक्विटी डिस्टॉर्शन बहुत ज़्यादा है. लार्ज लिस्टेड FMCG कंपनीज फुल रेगुलेटरी स्क्रूटनी का है, बिकॉज दे फाइल, दे पे एंड दे absorb the cost. Meanwhile, informal manufacturers operating in the same categories remain largely outside the tax net. So the formal sector faces higher cost without any equivalent enforcement on its informal GST net. So we can say that the system is not merely failing to punish the informality, it is actively rewarding it. Now, let me turn to the consumer dimension, which is central to the roundtable. If we look at the consumer expenditure, according to Harris 2024 to 25, food accounts for 37% of the household budgets across all income groups. Milk, wheat, and cooking oil are the most prominent categories. Even for the poorest quintile, wheat and milk alone account for almost 40% of the budget. Without a printed marketed retail price on the packaging, consumers don't know if they are paying the actual price or they are being overcharged. Price opacity in these categories is not a minor issue. It is daily regressive cost imposed on households that they can least afford. They face uncertain prices, unjustified markups, and no simple mechanism to verify if they are being overcharged. Our proposal is very simple. We are proposing that the third schedule should be expanded to other necessary consumer items because it can address all the problems. Firstly, tax collection will be at manufacturing level. There will be no dependence on retail compliance, and the chances of revenue leakage will be very less because this system works on much smaller, more visible, and a more auditable group of manufacturers. Second, it offers printed retail price, which becomes a consumer protection mechanism, and it removes space for manipulation. So we are not proposing any tax cut. We are just saying that the prices should be more transparent and there should be so that no additional burden or on consumer or on industry. So the proposed categories for this are cooking oil, milk, flour, frozen foods and condiments. अब क्योंकि already एक large number of FMCG products थर्ड स्केड्यूल के अंदर एक सिग्निफिकेंट अमाउंट ऑफ रेवेन्यू जनरेट कर रही हैं, तो इसको एक्सपेंड करना इज रिलेटिवली लो रिस्क एंड हाई इम्पैक्ट रिफॉर्म. Lastly, I will conclude with these 4 questions for our discussion. Has additional taxation on retailers actually improved the compliance, or it has just increased the cost for the informal sector? Can upstream tax collection improve compliance without increasing burden? Which categories should be prioritized, and how do we manage the transition effectively?
Discussion addresses a subject that lies at the heart of the Pakistan's economic future. how to build a tax system that is transparent, enforceable, growth-oriented, and fair to both consumers and compliant businesses. As President of Islamabad Chamber of Commerce and Industries, I represent a business community that strongly believes taxation is essential for national development. However, taxation must be designed in a manner that promotes compliance rather than fear, documentation rather than distortion, and economic expansion rather than contraction. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan's current GST regime has increasingly become complex and uneven in its practical implementation. Over the years, the formal sector has carried a disproportionate burden of indirect taxation, while a substantial segment of the retail economy has remained outside the documented framework. The introduction of additional GST on unregistered retailers was intended to encourage integration and documentation. While the objective was understandable, the ground realities reveal serious limitations. Except for a few large retail chains, the majority of retailers have remained reluctant to enter the fully documented regime. Consequently, the policy has added costs to compliant manufacturers, importers, and organized businesses without significantly broadening the tax net. This situation has created multiple distortions. It penalizes compliant business while rewarding informality. It weakens competitiveness of the documented sector. It contributes to higher prices for consumers. It increases litigation and compliance costs. And most importantly, it undermines trust between taxpayers and tax authorities. In such circumstances, the proposal to expand the third schedule of the Sales Tax Act 1990 deserves serious consideration. The third schedule offers an alternative framework centered on upstream tax collection, mandatory retail price printing, and greater transparency in the supply chain. This mechanism has revealed several potential advantages. First, it enhances consumer protection and transparency. When retail prices are printed and standardized, consumers are protected from arbitrary pricing and undocumented transactions. Second, it improves tax integrity and enforceability. Collection at the manufacturing or import stage reduces leakages further down the supply chain, where monitoring becomes difficult and administratively expensive. Third, it lowers compliance complexity for many downstream businesses, especially small retailers who often lack the technical capacity to comply with complicated documentation and integration procedures. Fourth, it can support the broader national objectives of economic documentation without creating excessive harassment or uncertainty for businesses. However, while supporting reform, I would also emphasize that any expansion of the third schedule must be undertaken carefully, transparently, and consultation with the stakeholders. Policy stability is extremely important for business confidence. Frequent tax changes, abrupt implementation mechanism, and inconsistent enforcement create uncertainty that discourages investment. Therefore, I would respectfully propose a few principles for consideration. Number one, broad-based consultation. Any expansion of the third schedule should involve meaningful consultation with the chambers of commerce, sectorial associations, manufacturers, retailers, and tax experts before implementation. Number two, simplicity and digital integration. The tax regime should become simpler, not more complicated. Technology must facilitate compliance instead of creating additional procedural burdens. Number three, uniform enforcement. Selective enforcement damages credibility. The law must apply equally across sectors and regions. Number four, incentives for documentation. Business should see clear economic benefits in becoming documented entities. Compliance should be encouraged through facilitation, not merely through penalties. Number 5, protection of the formal sector. Pakistan cannot achieve sustainable growth if compliant businesses continue to face higher operational costs than undocumented competitors. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenge before Pakistan is not merely revenue collection. The larger challenge is creating a credible fiscal ecosystem where businesses are willing partners in national development. Our tax to GDP ratio remains below the level required to sustainably finance development, infrastructure, education, healthcare, and exports. Yet, the solution does not lie in repeatedly burdening the same documented sectors. The real solution lies in widening the base, reducing distortions, improving enforcement efficiency, and rebuilding trust. Pakistan's business community is ready to support reforms, provided reforms are practical, predictable, and growth-oriented. I commend Prime Institute for initiating discussion on an issue that has long remained underexplored despite its significant implications for formalization, transparency, and economic efficiency. ICCI remains fully committed to constructive engagement with policymakers, research institutions, and fellow chambers to support reforms that strengthens Pakistan economy and improve the ease of doing business. Thank you very much. Pakistan Zindabad.
I would like to start off by saying that everything that was in the presentation and things that President Chamber of Commerce has discussed is exactly what I was going to talk about. And these are the recommendations from our end as well. So I'll go into those details further. But I just want to start, we were in the Senate earlier today, and even yesterday we were there. And of course, there's this back and forth with FBR, and there's always this fight going on with FBR, and both GST and the third schedule are very important. I always say that tax, is a byproduct of business. If business runs, you will have tax. It seems that notion is not prevalent in our policymakers. It seems the tax environment is such that it is coercive. We see coercive tactics by the FBR. Harassment is very rampant in the FBR. Hence, we are not seeing the tax base going up. It's not increasing at all. The cost of doing business is rising substantially. Today, I'm an exporter of pharmaceuticals. I hurt from 3 things when I go and compete against the region. Higher cost of energy, higher cost of tax, and higher cost of interest environment, the KIBOR that we talk about. So if these, all 3 are the highest in the region, and taxation is of course one of the highest ones. And that is making us very, very non-competitive. Whether we talk about the salaried class or the business community, in general, the taxation rates are very high. Super tax was something that was that came out, and nobody was happy about it. And I know the larger corporations got hit pretty bad. And this was a big point of contention in the Senate as well, that once you've had an FTR or a final tax regime, how can you put a super tax on top of a final tax that you've levied? So I think we're getting away with that. So those are some observations that I had. So now I'll just go over what the ground reality today is. We basically have a structural crisis. That's what I think where we are. This tax system, the GST system, is broken. As we know, it has a big contribution in our tax revenue, but yet it remains broken. Every day, our registered members absorb compliance costs, documentation burdens, and tax liabilities that their unregistered competitors simply do not bear. That additional 4% that we talked about has to be borne by the formal sector. And rather than narrowing this gap, recent policy measures have actually, unfortunately, widened it. Where the current system has failed, I believe the FBR's imposition of the additional 4% GST on unregistered retailers obviously has failed. It was well-intentioned, but the goal to bring retailers into the formal net was the right goal, but the outcome has been the opposite of what was intended. So that's where we have to look at how effective that policy has been. Except for large chain stores, retailers have refused to integrate. The informal sector has largely remained informal. Meanwhile, the formal industry has to absorb the additional cost. So we are not talking about formalization. We're talking about the formalization of a disadvantage, which is there for the formal sector. What is the case for the third schedule when we look at these issues? The solution does not lie in adding more pressure at the retail end of the chain. It is where President Islamabad Chamber also pointed out, and Maryam's presentation was also mentioning, that we have to go upstream when it comes to the taxation environment. An end that FBR structurally cannot monitor. We have realized that the retail end is too huge for FBR to monitor. They're unable to monitor. Taj scheme has failed. Multiple other schemes have failed. So what does that tell us? That spectrum is so huge that FBR is unable to go in and control that spectrum. So rather than going after a failed strategy, maybe go upstream and the solution lies in moving tax collection at that stage. The third schedule of the Sales Tax Act offers exactly this. Through upstream tax collection at the manufacturer-importer level and through mandatory printing of retail prices, it creates a system that is transparent, self-enforcing, and administratively efficient. Think about what this means in practice. When tax is collected at the point of manufacture or import, you are dealing with a manageable number of large auditable entities, not millions of small shopkeepers scattered across the country. When retail prices are printed on packaging, of course, the consumer benefits, like it was said earlier, and because any deviation from the printed price is immediately visible. This is smart taxation. It reduces evasion, lowers the cost of enforcement, and brings transparency to the consumer. So, the budget recommendations are similar to what the Islamabad Chamber has also suggested. We've given these to the Senate Standing Committee as well. And this is what the Rawalpindi Chamber of Commerce and Industry also urges. First, of course, expand the third schedule to add the additional product categories, particularly those sectors which are involved in under-invoicing. We all know who they are. FBR knows who they are. So sectors where there is price manipulation need to be added in this third schedule product categories, and informal competition sectors as well. Secondly, phase out the additional 4% GST on unregistered retailers. It has not worked. It is not going to work. So we might as well get away with it. Continuing it only deepens the disadvantage faced by the formal businesses. Thirdly, replace the reactive retail level enforcement with proactive upstream collection mechanisms that are structurally sound and do not depend on FBR chasing millions of small traders. We would end up where Taj scheme will ended up. So, and then we are not asking for tax relief, of course. We are asking for a level playing field. We are asking for a system where doing business formally is an advantage and not a burden. So, Pakistan's economic future, ladies and gentlemen, depends on documentation, as we all know. Our future depends on formalization of the economy. And the trust between the government and the business community has to be established. That trust is built when the tax system is seen as fair. It should have the illusion of being fair, which unfortunately it does not. Fair to those who comply, fair to those who stand with the tax system, not fair to those who challenge the taxation environment right in our faces. The third schedule, expanded thoughtfully and implemented seriously, can be a cornerstone of that fair and equitable system that we are demanding. I look forward to a productive discussion today, and I hope the recommendations from this roundtable discussions find their way into the federal budget or in a meaningful way for our businesses. Thank you so much, Pakistan Zindabad.
I think it's great to hear from these two business leaders what should be the taxation system should look like and how taxation should be implemented, which is business friendly. At the same time, it increases the revenue, which ideally should be the ultimate goal of Federal Board of Revenue or any government authority, that it should increase the tax collection, which can be later spent on all of us as a people living in Pakistan. So representing a multinational, I would say, I think what all said, we are very much aligned to this. And in fact, we are volunteering it and demanding the government, requesting the government, the benefit of the third schedule. And that benefit comes in a way, and for us, it's more, we are actually on the forefront because our product reached out to 250,000 retail stores. And these retail stores are spread across Gilgit till Quetta. So we have the maximum biggest network of retail store of any other FMCG in Pakistan, whether it's in food sector or any other sector. If it's FMCG, we are the largest retail. And as it's been said already, close to 90 or over 85% is unregistered retail, which means despite all the efforts of the government, these retailers have been unregistered. We have a great distributor network, which is all registered. But with this unregistered retailers, in our case, of course, is not as big as this one, but still is largely 65% is unregistered. And the negativity that it generates, that many of our unregistered retailers, they pushed back us that they want to sell our products because, we asked them, this 4% further tax, this is levied by the FBR, ideally they should give it, or this 2.5% income tax is their responsibility. But the challenge is, it's very difficult to convince them. And unfortunately, as already been said, this become our cost because staying compliant with FBR, we have to as a withholding tax agent, we have to collect this and give it to them. So we take it as a cost. So from 18% sale tax, there's another 6.5. So actually the product becomes almost like the tax impact of 24%, which means our products are much more expensive than ideally what it should be. And end of the day is all of us who are sitting here, we are all consumers. So this has to be paid by the consumers. We may absorb the price, but how far? Sooner or later. So when they came up with this 4% and 2.5%, in the initial days, we kept on, making sure that we absorb it because it was very difficult. And remember 2 years back, even now, inflation is so high. And our consumer are, they don't have this money to pay out of their pocket every time the inflation increases. So we have to absorb the cost. But again, that increases our business model more difficult than it was 2 years back. So we've been suggesting to the government that they should move us from the standard rate of taxation, which is 18%, to the third schedule of the sale tax, which is also 18%. And ironically, these are both 18% of the tax system are given or provided by FBR, but one of the system does not differentiate between registered and unregistered retailer, which is the third schedule. Whereas as a standard 18% is differentiated. So it's an anomaly in the system also. Why you would like to have two different systems when you have a more efficient one is there. Of course, I think very rightly said, the initial assessment or the logic probably they would like to involve the whole value chain. But then that system or that, I think the initiative has failed. They're not able to do it. So one side is actually working, and we made a very rough estimate, looking at how many items or category of products which are already in third schedule. So there are many. If I start counting from this water bottle, which is in front of you, it has a price written on the top. So we as a consumer know what's the price, exactly price of the bottle. But in comparison to milk that we sell, even if you go and complain as a consumer or consumer association or government authorities, they sometimes do complain. But we don't write price on it because it's not provided, it's not demanded by the law. Under 18% of standard GST, you're not supposed to write the price. But under third schedule, you have to write the price. So that's one of the biggest benefit. Plus, it doesn't differentiate, as I said, between registered and non-registered. So it's a more opportunity. The moment we move on this side, we may increase the volumes and sales of our within this network, because our sales counterpart retailers will be more open to sell our products or welcoming us, even if they're reluctant today. So the number I was saying, there's like 2.5 trillion rupees of retail trade is happening of FMCG. And mind it, I'm only talking about FMCG. I think Usman Saab probably better tell us what is the size of the pharmaceutical industry. That's already in the third schedule. So there's probably another 1,000 billion, if I use a rough estimate. So it's like 3.5 trillion of the things that we buy on our daily use, they're already in third schedule. Whereas what is left out, and in this category is water, tea, coffee, toothpaste, shampoo, soaps, you name it. We can go up, juices, carbonated drinks. They're all in third schedule already for years or for the last some time. Last year, in fact, we sell coffee. They moved us to third schedule. And we were very happy that at least we welcomed it because we thought it's a first step towards the right direction. But somehow, after that, they seemed like they are not moving ahead. So we were pushing them, this is how is making our business difficult. And when you have already moved on that side, it shows that, that's the probably way of doing business. And what is left out is probably milk, few dairy items, oil, flour, frozen food. So probably it's a 500 to 600 billion rupees of, or slightly, it is all packaged item, Loose can be much more, but the packaged item. So this is probably left out from the third schedule. So we are requesting them now that, you take it, and it's a kind of a volunteer ourselves. Because sometimes companies don't like, this price to be there. We are Consumer Association, I see Caucus up sitting here. So sometimes they send us a complaint, or there are government authorities who send us a complaint. In the last 2 years, we have at least attended 7 inquiries where we presented ourselves and said, as per standard sales tax law, we are not supposed to print. And then we showed them the other example also where we are supposed to print, we are doing it. So we are compliant where law is demanding us. But we don't want to print it where law is not demanding us. And because it's not only us, we cannot be outlier in the market where if I start printing the price, my competition is not printing the price. Because you have to be cognizant of those kind of challenges. So in that case, we are suggesting the government that third schedule is a way forward for the large FMCG sector. It's much more compliant, it's very transparent, because the other, the 80 standard rate of taxation is it's a wonderful system of value chain based, but it's required a lot more education in the system. It's complicated, it has too many leakages. This is upfront, retail manufacturer pays it. And government can actually make a good calculation looking at my numbers today, and Nestle grows by 5%, 7%, 10%. They can give a good projection. What will be the next year, the number should be coming from Nestle. So it's easier, transparent, no leakages, and end of the day, government gets benefit out of it. And I think over the top, the biggest benefit is our consumer get benefit out of it, because this is it's a transparent. They get pricing, and sometimes we know, retailers that we work with, they have a price differential in the neighbor stores also. One store is offering something else, second is offering something else. But with this price, even if they are offering a different price, they have to write it there that this is a special discount they are offering. But they cannot demand on their own. So this is why we are in favor of third schedule. It's more likely a volunteer approach that we are taking up within the industry. Few would like it, few would not like it, but we are very clear that that's the way forward for Pakistan, for our consumers, and for the tax collection as well. Thank you very much.
The idea of this third schedule, and I think it's a very important discussion that we have to expand this discussion. But the question that is important to it is not about how we should expand. The real question is, do we need more enforcement, or the existing enforcement is actually working? So to me, the idea that probably that Pakistan does not need more tax enforcement. Pakistan need a consumer-led tax system. And for the last 3 decades, we are talking about the reforms like more registration, more orders, more notices, more penalties, more withholdings, and more documentation drive. But despite all these efforts, tax base remain low. We are far below than our competitor like Vietnam, like even Bangladesh, even India. We are far below than that. So this means that we have to penalize the formal sector by imposing more tax, by either increasing a GST, something like that. But the real question is not about the implementation failure. It's entirely perhaps the design itself is flawed, but we are talking about the taxation system. Because Pakistan tax system still assumes that The compliance can be achieved primarily through state monitoring. But modern economies no longer work like that. The successful tax system creates a self-enforcement mechanism, and that is entirely missing in our taxation system. Let me explain through example from Pakistan itself. Look at the example of BISP. Like millions of women were out of the system due to the lack of CNIC. And we were asked that there is a cultural barrier, there is a literacy issue, there is a distance issue, there is a documentation issue. But when we attach incentive with the holding of the CNIC, what happened? More than 9 million families enrolled and they registered with the CNIC. They break the barriers of this, the cultural norm, far flung from the Balochistan, from the KPK, FATA, everyone, because we attach the value, economic value with the CNIC. Same like another example, we talk about the financial inclusions. What happened? When there is the jazz violet, the easy paisa, what happened? We attach values with that system and people start using that system itself. So it means we didn't enforce, we didn't ask them to go for that. We just attach an economic value to that system. So this is the entirely missing in our taxation system. But we just try to harass the taxpayer. If you have to go to open a hotel in Islamabad, the best option for you to remain an informal. Because if you are a formal, you have to face a compliance issue and you have to go for audit. You have the tax inspector will be behind you for everything. So this means the real challenge is not the enforcement; it is the incentive structure. So we have to change the narrative from the tax compliance to a consumer-led taxation system. And how we can do that? There is always discussion that there is a much cost involved with that. My proposal at this forum that there is no cost involved with that, with that transformation, because we have the infrastructure. We have one of the best biometric identification system. Nadra is there. We have the mobile system. If the Imtiaz store or the Tajib store can pay the taxes, why not the Kriana store right in front of the Imtiaz store is obeying the law? He has the smartphone, he has the technology. Where is the technology gap? So it means we have to revamp the entire taxation system. Then the discussion would be totally different. We are paying actually our inefficiency, 4 to 5 trillion tax expenditure. And there is a massive informal sector. Because we are stuck in the NOC system, I gave a proposal to Planning Commission that if we really want to achieve this $1 trillion economy, what we have to do? Either we can achieve through this project-based economy. We can't do that. We have to adopt a universal approach. For that, I propose an idea that we should go for just like if I have to register my email. What documentation would I need? Nothing. I just need a 30-second to register my email. Why not we make such a simplified version of this business registration? It will help you to register everyone, every micro enterprise, every Kriana store. They have the QR code. Look at the Chinese example. Every street vendor have a QR code. They are registered with the system. Why? Because they are so easy to register. If I can register my email with my smartphone, why not I can register my business? Everything with my CNIC link with the entire ecosystem. We have to just enable that ecosystem. Nadra is there, banking sector is there. Every point of sale, if I have the device to verify my fingerprint, then why we need to show my documentation everywhere? Why I have to visit the public sector institution? My CNIC is my best collateral. If you block my CNIC, everything would stop immediately. Then why I need so many documentations? So we have to change our thinking. Then the discussion about this taxation would be totally different. We have to create an ecosystem, because if the one node is not working, probably you cannot achieve high tax base. You cannot broaden your tax net. with the compliance, with the tax inspector, with the FBR. We have to think differently, and my proposal is that we have the infrastructure. The only thing we have to connect that infrastructure without any additional cost. I just discussed another idea with our PIDE colleague that why not every individual, the worker, should be registered through a portal or a registry, just like the BISP as the National Socioeconomic Registry, where they have the complete profile. Why not every individual should register him or herself as a worker, as an employee, as a labor force participant? We need to add economic value with that registration. If we can do, everyone should start talking about that, because my mobile phone is the best instrument for me to register. If we allow that kind of registration, I explain the entire, I don't have much time to explain that model, because now I'm discussing with the PIDE and Planning Commission how we can create that register, where there is a two-way transaction. One is if I need a plumber in my neighborhood, I just go to visit that website and search very quickly the available plumber within that website. And the incentive structure, what we can give to them. Give them incentive structure in terms of health insurance, because we have the universal health coverage as well. Give them the accidental coverage. Give them the EOBI benefits like that. These are all systems available in different nodes. We just have to connect these systems. Then the entire discussion would be on how we can attach the value and how we can use the existing infrastructure. If we have that kind of thinking, then this third schedule would be transformational. Otherwise, it will remain as a discussion. We will not go beyond this 8%, 9%, and we will not broaden our tax base. We will stuck with the same narrative and we will end up with the same situation. Thank you so much.
जो informal economy है वो बढ़ती जा रही है, and this does not bode well for growth or revenue collection or anything. सो ये जो थर्ड शेड्यूल के हवाले से बात उठाई गई है, सो कंप्लायंट सेक्टर का शेयर मेंटेन करने के लिए शॉर्ट टर्म में आई थिंक इट्स अ वेरी गुड प्रपोजल, शुड बी टेकन. But I would agree with Nasir Saab and other people कि this is not the long term solution. ठीक है. वैट जो हम लेके आए पाकिस्तान में, पहले तो हमारे पास ये एक सेल्स टैक्स का निज़ाम होता था जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग और इंपोर्ट के ऊपर हुआ करता था. फिर हमें IMF ने सजेस्ट किया कि नहीं, आप प्रॉपर वैट वाले सिस्टम में जाएं. हमने फिर वो ट्रांजिशन की. आई यूज्ड टू बी एन असिस्टेंट कलेक्टर और अ डिप्टी कलेक्टर एट दैट टाइम. रियाज मलिक साहब हमारे उस वक्त मेंबर सेल्स टैक्स होते थे. तो जो पूरी एक टीम बनी थी, नया निज़ाम बना था, इंस्पेक्टर और सुपरिटेंडेंट से हम ऑडिटर और सीनियर ऑडिटर के ऊपर गए थे. आई वॉज इन्वॉल्व इन दैट ट्रांजिशन. वी हैड ग्रेट होप्स फॉर टेकिंग VAT to a modern system, but unfortunately we've not gone there. अब इसको हमने मैनेज करने के लिए जितनी डिस्टॉर्शंस क्रिएट की हैं, उससे शॉर्ट टर्म में कोई एक स्पाइक आता है, बट लॉन्गर टर्म में चीज़ें और ख़राब हो रही हैं, और तबाह हो रही हैं, और मुश्किल की तरफ जा रही. दुनिया के 170 ममालिक में सेल टैक्स का वैट का निज़ाम शामिल है. उन 170 ममालिक में लगभग 25 के करीब ऐसे हैं जो फेडरेशंस हैं, और उन 25 जो फेडरेशंस हैं उसमें 10 से 12 ऐसे हैं जिसमें स्प्लिट है कि फेडरल गवर्नमेंट पार्टली वैट कलेक्ट करेगी और पार्टली आपकी प्रोविंशियल या स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स करेंगी. इंडिया के अंदर सेंटर के पास सर्विसेज थी और स्टेट्स के पास गुड्स थे. पाकिस्तान में सेंटर के पास गुड्स और स्टेट्स के पास सर्विसेज. कनाडा के अंदर पार्टली उन्होंने सारी चीज़ों पे सेंटर ने लगाया हुआ है और पार्टली प्रोविंसेस ने लगाया हुआ है. ब्राज़ील के अंदर जो एग्रीकल्चरल कमोडिटी टाइप की चीज़ें हैं वो प्रोविंसेस के पास हैं. जो हाईली मैन्युफैक्चर्ड गुड्स हैं वो सेंटर के पास है. बट वैट वाज नॉट डिज़ाइंड फॉर अ फेडरेशन. दुनिया के अंदर majority 85% countries are not federations. They are center and local government. So VAT was designed by economists for that kind of a model. अब जब आप फेडरेशन में जाते हैं तो पहला फ्रैक्चर आता है कि जी ये चीज़ सर्विस है और ये चीज़ गुड्स है, कुछ चीज़ें हैं जहाँ पे दोनों चीज़ें कंबाइन होती हैं, ओवरलैप होती हैं, फिर आप कहते हैं दोनों में हमने इनपुट आउटपुट एडजस्टमेंट देनी है, तो जो सर्विसेज वाला है वो गुड्स खरीद के उसकी एडजस्टमेंट कहाँ करेगा। सो मैं बहुत तफसील में नहीं जाऊँगा, इस पर एक अलहदा पूरा वर्कशॉप हो सकती है, बट व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज कि वैट इज नॉट अ सिंपल मॉडल फॉर अ फेडरेशन, especially a federation where there is a split between powers of the federal government and power of the subnational governments. So हम एक बहुत मुश्किल टैक्स हमने उठाया हुआ है, उसके अंदर जो ये फर्दर टैक्स वाला निज़ाम हमने किया है, ये बार बार हम लाते हैं हटाते हैं, मैं भी उनमें गुनाहगारों में शामिल हूँ। जब एक ज़माना था जब कस्टम्स हैंडल करता था, कस्टम्स हमारा मॉडल उस वक्त मुल्क में टैक्सेशन का वो था जो आज भी इंडिया में है कि एक डायरेक्ट टैक्स है, एक इनडायरेक्ट टैक्स है। जो आपका कस्टम्स है, सेल्स टैक्स है और एक्साइज ड्यूटी है, वो इनडायरेक्ट टैक्सेस के पास होते थे, जिसमें इंडिया का उनका अपना अलग एक बोर्ड है, और जो डायरेक्ट टैक्सेस थे, कॉर्पोरेट टैक्सेस एंड इनकम टैक्सेस, उसका एक अलग सर्विस होती थी। इसको कहा भी एक जमाने में इनकम टैक्स सर्विस कहा जाता था, अब इसको इनलैंड रेवेन्यू सर्विस कहा जाता है। तो हमने वो डिस्टॉर्शन भी एक की। I'll give you थोड़ा सा, ये जो हमारी कॉलोनियल लेगेसी है उसमें इंडिया, पाकिस्तान, बांग्लादेश सब की मदर लॉ वही है जो ब्रिटिश छोड़ के गया था। कस्टम्स एक्ट, सेल्स टैक्स एक्ट, इनकम टैक्स एक्ट और एक्साइज ड्यूटी एक्ट। इंडिया जो है दे हैव गॉन थ्रू अ ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन और उनके पास बहुत सक्सेसफुली जीएसटी रिटेल पे इम्प्लीमेंट हो गया। पाकिस्तान एंड बांग्लादेश हैव नॉट बीन एबल टू मेक द ट्रांजिशन। हमने जो फर्दर टैक्स लगाया हुआ है जिसको ये अपोज कर रहे हैं, उसमें शायद दुनिया में एक दो और मुमालिक हों, वरना ये कहीं पे नहीं है। इट्स नॉट अ गुड वे ऑफ टैक्सिंग, इट हर्ट्स द कंप्लायंट सेक्टर, इट फैसिलिटेट्स द नॉन कंप्लायंट सेक्टर। इसी तरह से जो थर्ड शेड्यूल वाली चीज़ है, ये भी आपको साउथ एशिया में मिलेगी, सबसे ज़्यादा पाकिस्तान में, उसके बाद बांग्लादेश में, और उससे भी कम आपको इंडिया के अंदर मिलेगी। बट इंडिया इज ऑन अ डिफरेंट ट्रैजेक्टरी। इंडिया इज मूविंग कि हम ये जितनी डिस्टॉर्शंस हैं वैट की, इसको हम खत्म करने जा रहे हैं। इट विल बी अ स्टैंडर्ड थिंग, नो फर्दर टैक्स, नो थर्ड शेड्यूल, नथिंग लाइक दैट। जो जितना लेगा उतना टैक्स देगा, बाकी ये स्टेट की जिम्मेदारी है। उसको करने के लिए, और ये खाली इंडिया में नहीं हुआ है, इफ यू वांट टू लुक अप कि जी रिटेल टैक्स दुनिया की कितनी डेवलपिंग और ट्रांजिशनल इकोनॉमीज में सक्सेसफुली वैट में ले आए हैं, तो आपको बहुत सारे मुल्क मिलेंगे। साउथ अफ्रीका में, साउथ अमेरिका में भी मिलेंगे, अफ्रीका में भी मिलेंगे। अफ्रीका में द जेम इज रवांडा। रवांडा ने बड़ा जबरदस्त तरीके से इंप्लीमेंट किया। एंड रवांडा, यू कांट से इट्स अ फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड कंट्री, इट्स अ कंट्री लाइक अस, बट इट्स अ जेम। व्हाई? बिकॉज आप तीन चीजें करते हैं जब आपने वैट को ठीक इंप्लीमेंट करना होता है। स्ट्रक्चर ठीक करते हैं, उसका बेस्ट एग्जांपल इंडिया है। इंडिया ने 4-5 साल सब ने मिलके, प्रोविंसेस ने, फेडरेशन ने बात की। नाउ दे हैव अ हार्मोनाइज्ड सेंट्रल एंड स्टेट लेवल जीएसटी सिस्टम। उससे बड़ा बूस्ट हुआ। आपके जो नंबर ऑफ रजिस्ट्रेंट्स थे रिटेल के, वो 3-4 गुना बढ़ गए और बहुत तेजी से बढ़ गए। सो स्ट्रक्चर इज वन थिंग यू कैन वर्क ऑन। सेकेंड इज इंसेंटिव्स। इंसेंटिव्स कई तरह के होते हैं। इंसेंटिव में ये भी होता है कि जो टैक्स रजिस्टर से खरीदता है उसको फौरन कोई रिबेट या कैशबैक मिलता है। आपका किसी लॉटरी स्कीम के अंदर नाम चला जाता है, आपकी लॉटरी लग जाए तो वो हर महीने हजारों लोगों की लॉटरी लगती है, एडवर्टाइज होते हैं, तो उसमें वो जो बंदा है वो डिमांड करता है कि मुझे वो वाला दो जिसके ऊपर लॉटरी का वो निकलता है। और तीसरा लोअर रेट है, जो आपने पाकिस्तान में भी सक्सेसफुली इंप्लीमेंट किया है। आप लोकांटा पे जाएं, आप किसी और रेस्टोरेंट पे जाएं, आपने कैश में पेमेंट करनी है तो आपको 15% देना पड़ेगा। आप क्रेडिट कार्ड पे पेमेंट करते हैं तो आपको 5% मिलेगा। मैंने उसके बाद कभी कैश में पेमेंट नहीं की है, मैं इस्लामाबाद क्लब के अंदर भी कार्ड पे पेमेंट करता हूं। इट गिव्स मी एन इंसेंटिव। सो कंज्यूमर को इंसेंटिव दे। दूसरा इज टेक्नोलॉजी। And technology is not just any technology, it is the right fit, smart use of technology. आप देखें कि ये क्या है। मेरा जो इस पे कंक्लूजन है, आई अग्री विद व्हाट अ लॉट हैज बीन सेड। बड़ी अच्छी बातें की गई हैं। कंज्यूमर लेड होनी चाहिए, टेक्नोलॉजी का यूज होना चाहिए, इंसेंटिव्स होने चाहिए. फर्दर टैक्स इज नॉट अ गुड आइडिया. फर्दर टैक्स हर्ट्स द कंप्लाइंट सेक्टर. कंप्लाइंट सेक्टर का 5% मार्केट शेयर जब नॉन कंप्लाइंट को जाता है तो वहां से आपको 5% टैक्स नहीं आता है, वहां से एक भी नहीं आता. यहां से 5 आप लूज करते हैं, वहां पे आपको एक भी नहीं मिलता. शॉर्ट टर्म के लिए थर्ड शेड्यूल इज अ गुड आइडिया. इट्स अ विन विन एफबीआर के लिए भी और जो हमारा कंप्लाइंट सेक्टर है उसके लिए भी. लेकिन लॉन्गर टर्म में वी हैव टू से कि हम ये डिस्टॉर्शंस नहीं करेंगे. हमने वो तरीका इस्तेमाल करना है टैक्स बेस ब्रॉडनिंग का जो रवांडा ने किया है, जो ब्राजील ने किया है, जो इंडिया ने किया है. इंसेंटिव्स लेके आए, टेक्नोलॉजी, स्मार्ट टेक्नोलॉजी को आप लेके आए और फेडरेशन और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के दरमियान आपको इस पे बातचीत करके एक हार्मोनाइज सिस्टम क्रिएट करें. बिजनेसेस थ्राइव करने चाहिए और कंप्लाइंट बिजनेसेस ज्यादा थ्राइव करने चाहिए, बिकॉज जितनी गुड चीजें आपको कंप्लाइंट से मिलती हैं नॉन कंप्लाइंट से नहीं मिलती हैं. I'll stop here. Thank you.
My very last comment and submission would be as an economist, I am of the view that when we talk about taxation and economic growth, I think we might be oversimplifying a relationship which is very dear to my heart. What is the role of the government? Ultimately, taxation is the price, or taxes is the price that we pay so that we can have a good government. Right? So government provides certain public goods. So I personally think that linking it always with business or economic growth can also have a limitation. जब आपकी ज़्यादा growth हो रही हो तो क्या हमें tax को बढ़ाना चाहिए? So इसके मुकाबले में अगर हम ये argument रखें कि हमें गवर्नमेंट से कुछ सर्टेन सर्विसेज चाहिए जो अच्छी क्वालिटी के सर्विसेज हैं, वो क्या हैं और उसके मुताबिक फिर टैक्स को हमें वर्क करना चाहिए और फिर हमें एक बेहतर निज़ाम की तरफ जाना चाहिए. सो विद दैट आई थैंक ऑल द स्पीकर्स हु हैव made very valuable contributions and also participants who have stated very I think useful comments and especially Mukarram Ansari Saab. I know that this is your passion to talk about reforms and I'm grateful that you took this up and also helped us in understanding the bigger picture. So at this point I conclude this roundtable and I assure you that we will take all these points all in form of recommendations to the tax policy office and hopefully contribute to that debate.